Gareth Johnston is a fellow Ulsanite who originally hails from Johannesburg, South Africa. Since arriving, he has been an outstanding member of the local community by dedicating lots of his free time to supporting local volunteering initiatives. Gareth also shills for the University of the People, an illegitimate, unaccredited online university with questionable instructional practices and shady ties to the international baccalaureate program. This episode's full of great stories, insights, and the cliffhanger topic at the end has ensured that we most definitely need to do an episode 2 very soon. Thanks for coming by, Gareth. Tired of studying at home? Using the same old books, practicing the same old basic English patterns? It's time to step up your game and get the practice you need to become a fluent English speaker. Dr. English is an all-in-one English learning platform. The qualified native speakers can help you start or continue your journey to English fluency. Enjoy learning from the comfort of your own home. Call 010-4591-1496 for a free sample class, or take your English to the next level by visiting their website right now, www.dr-english.com. Open your doors to endless opportunities. Dr. English.
You are now tuned into This Korean Life with your hosts, Brian and Nate.
Welcome back to another episode of This Korean Life, number 48, featuring Mr. Gareth Johnston, straight out of Joburg. Hey? Straight out of Joburg. I feel like this needs its
straight out
own.
of Compton.
It needs equally dangerous from what you've
Maybe
told
a little
me.
more dangerous. I don't know.
I don't know if this is a false memory or not, but did you or possibly Kay tell me that when you're driving in Johannesburg, like kind of coming to a full stop at a stop sign is not really your safest bet?
No, it is definitely not your safest bet. You have to have like eyes in the back of your head, and you're looking around, and especially in Johannesburg. But whenever you are,
Is that's certain areas of that's like a downtown area, or that's not like there's suburbs and whatnot?
no, that could be anywhere. That could be anywhere. In fact, often
Why would anyone live there?
because it's everywhere, so you can't avoid it. It's in
But
all the
Joburg's
areas.
pretty famous, isn't it? Or infamous?
I mean, it's famous. It's the largest.
But I mean,
city
more
in
so that you
Australia.
don't hear Cape Town or these other places with that much danger, per se.
South Africa is a dangerous country in all of the big metropolitan areas.
It's also one of the biggest tourist destinations in Africa.
True.
If it was so dangerous, it probably wouldn't have that title, no?
strong.
The beauty and the amazingness of the country often, I think, overrule the fact that it is incredibly dangerous there. As a person who lived there, I think that South Africans, actually, I have a theory that South Africans live with permanent PTSD that they don't actually realize or acknowledge.
You're always a little jumpy.
You are always looking over your shoulder. Johannesburg is seen as more dangerous, but I mean, statistically, Cape Town has just as many murders and robberies, and so it's not really. I think Cape Town is kind of very beautiful and more relaxed generally, so it kind of gets a pass in that regard. But Johannesburg is like a big city vibe with all that hustle and bustle, and on top of that, like the crime and just the nature of the crime as well. It's a nerve-wracking place.
So there's no 2 a.m., 3 a.m. strolls home by yourself like you can in Korea. You guys must feel super safe in Korea. It must be a very nice, very welcome change.
Every time that I'm doing something like that, I think that.
Really?
Every time, usually at night, I take a walk in my area, just like,
Didn't get stabbed.
it's unthinkable. It would be unthinkable to do what I did that in South Africa, in most areas. You would not do that lightly. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's so yeah.
You would not do that. I mean, people do obviously go. They ride their bikes and they do go for jogs, but you would definitely think strategically about it. I don't know how to put it. Like, where do
it's
I
like
leave,
wearing a
where
mask.
do I leave my phone? Do I carry money? Do I not carry money? Like that kind of thing would definitely cross your mind. And you would have to be careful about it, because if you just went out, then somebody would probably, you at least stand a chance of somebody jumping you.
I wonder.
What are they after? Anything and everything?
Money, mostly. I mean, I think...
So you don't have any. Are you good? They say, give me the shit. Check me, dude. I got nothing.
Then
Okay,
you
keep
probably...
going.
They'll probably...
Phone,
they'll
chains,
probably-
rings.
Yeah, they'll take what they can take and they'll let you go. But again, South Africa is... There's a deeper level to it. And I think that's the problem. Isn't just that people are after money, which is obviously caused by the have and have-nots in the country. South Africa's got a massive disparity between poverty and wealth. So people are obviously trying to they're trying to equalize that on their own terms. But the other problem is that not just that they'll take your money, it's that they will, like, if you don't have anything, there's a very good chance they'll just shoot you in the face because you don't have anything.
That's what I mean. Is there a physical danger? Like when I was when I was all over West Africa, you might have saw some knives or guns, but if you didn't have anything or you just gave them what they wanted, you're on your way. They're not going to hurt you, and they're more scared to hurt you because there'll be more repercussions against them. But I don't know if it's more lawless where you guys are, or that's what I meant though. Like if you don't have anything, do they just let you go, or do they just shoot you and say?
That's what Conette was speaking to. She said it's not that they'll just come and rob your house. It's that they're going to shoot you.
Right.
They'll shoot you after if they're not exactly happy with what they've done.
That's what I was saying. Like there's the additional level. There's definitely a lot of hate running through South Africa, and I wouldn't even say that it's aimed at any specific race. It's just people tend to take out their anger, not just their economic frustration, but they will take out their anger on their victims. So you hear about a lot of crimes that are just, they're hateful.
1+1.
Yeah, so they just add insult to injury, and that is always an extra concern.
And who are the they?
Well, you just said it's not even one.
Well, you were saying the victims, but who are the perpetrators? Is there a?
It's very hard to put your finger on that. It's exactly who that is. I mean, it's people from all different communities.
Is it organized or what?
Sometimes disorganized. I mean, I'm sure you've probably seen that video on YouTube of those guys chasing down that
Have I talked to you
armored
about that?
truck.
That was unbelievable.
Chasing down a what?
Armored truck. I don't know if you've seen that, but if you
Oh my
haven't, you
god,
should
dude!
watch
Listen,
that. That's
this is
crazy.
the superhero.
I think I did see that.
It's crazy.
Weren't they shooting them in the
And-
window?
That was in Johannesburg, I think, and just a normal street, and the gunfire just on the streets. I mean, it was GTA level stuff.
If
It
that
was
guy
insane.
doesn't get some sort of award or movie deal, he fit the role perfectly. That was
Who
amazing.
would want to be the armored truck driver?
Well, it was. Hold on. When you say armored truck, it's not a Brinks. It's not a Brinks truck like we have from back home.
What
That
do
was
you-
like
what's a Brinks truck?
a big armored truck.
I think that's what it kind of was, yeah.
It looked like a.
But it was probably smaller and lighter, so that it could move faster for exactly that kind of reason, I'm guessing. But I mean, you could see when the bullets were splatting on the windows. They were not like.
But it looked like a.
It looked like a proper bank truck.
Oh, I thought it
I think
looked.
so.
I thought I remember it looking like a pickup truck with a little extra beef on it there. But it was.
I mean, it might have been.
That was wild.
That was crazy.
No, it was broad daylight. Like, Buddy just goes up and he's just shifting gears, looking. He's like, "Shit, someone's coming!" Do.
But
And
I
he
mean,
he
with the huge, fully automatic rifle in the car. I mean,
his buddy there.
that is. I think that video very much encapsulates South Africa.
Gotta
to
buy
be
the-
honest,
gotta buy
with
that
you.
NFT.
Like, when I saw it, I saw the video. I saw the video before I saw any comments or whatever, and I just watched the video and I just thought, that's South Africa. I knew it. I knew it was South Africa. I didn't listen to it or I didn't hear any commentary or anything, and I was like, that is South Africa. There's only one place that kind of stuff will go down. Maybe they're in Brazil.
It's so hard for me to put myself in that position growing up again in small kind of Niagara Falls, Canada. Coming here, it seems like a fairy tale. Like nothing bad ever happens here. Drunk girl or guy going home.
Yeah.
Any time of the night, they're usually safe. How does it affect?
I've never felt unsafe in Korea.
Yeah.
Not for 2 minutes.
How does it affect your
Never.
life at home? Like, is that something you're like? Is it just always in the back of your mind? Here, I feel I'm in a place where I can focus on several different things. We have the podcast or studying or work, and that's kind of what my life is or family or whatnot, but there, how much of that of your thinking is taken up by like stay safe?
I don't think people dedicate a lot of their thinking to it because you can't. You know, when you're in the situation, you can't. You actually just find ways to get around it and kind of cope.
Yeah.
Which is where the PTSD comes in, I think.
Okay.
Because people push it to the back of their minds, and that stress kind of builds up over time.
Just wake up screaming.
I mean, I think people have like crazy anxiety. I think it perpetuates in like either like alcoholism and obesity. People are, you know what I mean? So people are definitely, their mental health is affected. Obviously, in certain situations, it'll be something that you consider. A good example. Carry on.
Is that why there's so many more South Africans here now? Like, it never used to be almost any here. And the last 5, 6, 7 years, God, I mean, they're the majority probably now.
I think especially in Ulsan, and I think one of the reasons is because in the bigger cities like Seoul and Busan, they tend to favor Americans, Canadians. So the South Africans get shifted to the smallest cities, you know, so the South Africans end up all over the country, so to speak. But yeah, definitely. And you'll see, one of the things I think is interesting is you won't see South Africans of just one type. In Korea, they're all different kinds of people, and they're all trying to, like, in some way or other, improve their situation and maybe kind of escape their situation a little bit as well. So yeah, definitely. And I think it's the downhill trend is what has forced people to leave the country. You know what I mean? Like, there's not been over the years since things have changed, since, you know, like, change since apartheid, basically. There hasn't been a great improvement. It's kind of just been a steady slide.
I've had the opportunity to meet, like you said, various South African people who seem like they're all from almost like a different country, you know. Do you find that you connect with people because they're from South Africa? Like, if we meet a Canadian, you can kind of, for the most part, you can talk hockey. You can relate to some music or something from the country. But is it like that?
Well, there's a lot of Canadians here that I cannot relate to.
What do you mean?
In lots of ways. Okay. Because they're not hockey, or they're not.
I use those as examples. But I mean, if you're around the same age, I think you can throw a Simpsons reference or whatever, a TV show you watch when you're young. There's something that you can connect with. But I wonder if it's like that with South Africa growing up, you know, where it was divided for so long. And apartheid was what, 92? But do you feel a connection to, I mean, just your personal feeling? If you meet someone from Canada, you're like, hey, we're from the same, you feel like you're from the same place, no?
I don't know.
No, okay, I do anyways. But
I don't feel so from Canada anymore. I've lived majority of my life abroad.
You're more Korean.
And I don't know about Korean, but yeah, I just don't feel so Canadian. If you've only been here for 2 years, I think we're on totally different levels here of understanding of Korea, and that I probably feel a lot more Korean than you think you are Korean. My life is kind of Korean. But no, man, that's why I think we get the same 5 buddies for 10 years. Like,
we're all Canadians.
I don't, yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, I don't just connect with anybody because they're Canadian. And
no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, do you feel some affinity towards it because you're from the same country, or is it just
like a mutual recognition?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, yeah.
But if I think, like, if you're the Toronto or the Niagara Falls guy who's never left and never ventured outside of the capital of the world,
Nate hates Toronto.
but I've lived there, and I've lived a lot of other places. But yeah, I mean, if you meet a guy from Saskatchewan, I don't think there's a lot you can. I think it's a whole different level, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
Farm boys. When I moved from Thunder Bay to the prairies, I mean, I was an outcast. I was like a city boy, and I was from Thunder Bay, and I was like, I'm not a. You guys ever been to Thunder Bay? I'm not a city boy. But I can't imagine if someone from Toronto moved to Saskatchewan, you'd feel like a fish out of water, man. So I don't know how much there is to, just country music alone. They're like, what the hell is that? What are you listening to? If I go back to Ontario and cranking country tunes, like, or even in Korea, and all these Ontario guys, like, what the hell are you listening to? And then they all started liking country music. Once Nikki and the boys came over, we converted a bunch. But
what about South Africa?
I mean, obviously there'll be that kind of what you've already said, actually. Like, you'll connect with people
On
on
some
a kind
level,
of
yeah.
on a base level. You can talk about stuff. I'm guessing probably things like crime will come up and just like, oh my god, Korea's so safe.
Yeah, I didn't get robbed today.
It's so mind blowing.
Me
Like,
neither.
that kind of thing will definitely come up. And you know, those core things, and you know what is cool about South Africa and what is cool about South Africa. You'll connect on those levels, but then again, you know, it's people. You only connect with some people, and some people.
Okay, I got a couple of questions related. I didn't realize how prevalent it is, or how prevalent you say it is.
Go on.
I spent a lot of time backpacking, and I spent quite a bit of time in West Africa, all over the place. I had planned before I decided to get married. I had a full trip planned from Cairo to Cape Town on a bicycle. It sounds like I would never come out alive.
It's a good chance you may not.
After hearing this story, like, what do you think the percentage of if I'm just backpacking around South Africa, what's the chance you're going to be involved in crime? Pretty high?
I'd say it's fairly high, yeah. If you look like you're carrying stuff that people want, people would want it.
Okay, that's my next one. Living there and knowing that.
Yeah.
And what I learned traveling is you don't advertise anything. I would backpack with nothing. I would look like a homeless person. And part of that was that you're just kind of free and you can just be a hippie and chill. But part of it is also I don't want to attract attention.
Yeah.
And as long as you have one more bling than I do, they're coming for you, not me.
Yeah.
So when you live there, is that part of it? Like, there's no sense wearing rings or necklaces or earrings because it's just going to get me more problems. Or I don't care, do whatever I want. If they come for me, they do.
I think, again, like it depends on the people. I'm sure some people think like that. An interesting.
I mean, for you, like backpacking,
I'm not really a rings and gold kind of guy.
Okay.
And I'm not that flashy as a person myself.
But would you buy a cheaper car instead of
absolutely
this car? Would you buy a shittier bicycle because you know it's going to get taken?
For example, when I bought a car in South Africa, I actually wanted a Golf, VW Golf, because they're cool.
That'd be gone in 26 seconds.
In South Africa, that is the target vehicle. If you buy a Golf, you stand such a massive chance of having it stolen. And so instead, I chose to buy a Ford because
Fix or repair daily.
Yeah, and
they don't fix them so they don't steal.
I mean, my car was okay, but I'm not going to slander Ford at this point. But the point is, I bought that car to avoid having problems, like having it stolen or hijacked. Hijacking is a big thing in South Africa.
So that's.
But they don't sit on the side of the road. Oh, Golf, get that guy. Yeah, Ford, man, you don't need a Ford.
That's exactly what.
Really? Then why would people buy a Golf?
Precisely what they do.
In India,
Because Golfs are cool.
But why would people buy them if they're going to be targeted?
Because they're popular and they're targeted because they're popular, and people buy them because they're popular.
You might just be thinking on a different level. Like, I mean, it penetrates.
Because that's my whole thing. When I'm traveling, I don't want it. I've been robbed 3 or 4 times traveling, but I mean, I think I've avoided probably 1,000 other robberies or thefts or petty thefts because I think I'm very cautious of what I'm doing, my actions, what I have on me, whatever.
It affects everyone differently, and I mean, in terms of car purchases, it's gone that far in with you. Right?
Let me give you another example. Kay and I are thinking of buying property in South Africa, and because like Cape Town is still a massive tourist attraction, and it's always good to have property. So we're thinking of buying property in South Africa, but we are very much more inclined to buying an apartment than a house. Now, houses are great. They
security in numbers.
But like in apartments in South Africa, they have usually a security desk. You have to access the building.
You have to shoot the guy before you get in.
Much harder to much harder to get into your apartment than it is in a house. In a house, you stand a massive chance of being like, unless you have like all their security systems and armed response and all that, you stand a really good chance of having it robbed every other day. So that's the main reason. That's the main reason we are inclined to getting an apartment rather than
every other day is an exaggeration, or no?
I mean, everybody. It's one of the strange things. Almost everyone that I know in South Africa has had crime perpetrated to them on different levels.
I wrote down
ranging from guns being put in their face, knives pulled on them, having their house cleaned out, having a car hijacked, something. Almost everyone.
You need to be like a super Buddhist and just not have any attachment to anything that you own.
And even that,
and
I
just
don't think necessarily would protect you, but
yeah.
So
No, but I
that's-
mean, in terms of if you're worried about losing
live in a cave.
losing your stuff.
that I put down here. Have you ever been a victim?
Yeah.
And if it's this dangerous, why the hell would anybody want to go back? I understand the obvious. Okay, that's where I'm from. But if you can live this kind of peaceful and enjoyable life without having any of that, and you say the PTSD,
You're asking someone who lives in Korea and has lived here for now 4 years.
Yeah.
but you said also contemplating going back.
I'm not contemplating going back for exactly that reason. Like, I'm not like. Kay wants to go back, and Kay wants to go back so that she can, practice her profession, which is architecture, which you can't really do here in Korea. But like,
no online.
What about a third party country?
I mean,
Like, I
that's-
also think
that's
saving
a
that.
possibility.
But I think like when you look at it from outside, it might seem like a bad strategy. But when you grow up in it, it's always a part, right?
It's just your life.
Yeah.
You're from India.
yeah, India.
I mean,
So,
so India has its
I
own
think
kind of issues
So
too.
I know
and-
my grandfather, like my grandparents, they always have this mentality. Oh, don't go down that street.
Yeah.
It's just not well lit.
Okay, needs more light.
But this is why I'm trying to get a grasp of how, because people said, don't go to this country, don't go to Niger, don't go to this. And we almost got probably raped and killed in Niger. And it was only by the skin of our teeth that we got out of a couple situations, my sister and I. And we got to the border between Burkina Faso and Mali. And the guy said, you have to give us your sister to go through. And I said, well, this is not a negotiation. Either let us through or we'll turn around and go back. He said, no, you should leave your sister here to get married, and then you'll be able to.
Well, I got to.
This isn't a game show. We're fucking trying to get across the other country.
Kai Bai Bo.
But
African humor.
but these guys are there with AK-47s, and they can either choose to use them or not, or threaten us or not. But many people said, don't go here, don't go there, don't go there. But if you go there, you're like, well, that's bullshit. They say, don't come to South Korea because Kim Jong-il's crazy. Well, come on. When 4 or 5 years ago when stuff started heating up, still after 15 years, aunts and uncles, hey, are you sure? Why don't you come back? You got to be careful. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, but listen, it's what issue you want to jump on, because I mean, there's a lot of people saying that about pandemic too,
But
right?
like, my mother, especially when I first came here, she would phone me. She was like, "Are you okay? Is everything fine? I'm worried about North Korea. I'm worried about Kim Jong Un."
Look out the front
like,
window,
I
man.
was like, I feel so safe here. It's crazy. I'm way more worried about you in your situation. Actually, there's a story. I was thinking about this before. Yes, I don't know why this came up, but my family in South Africa has been really lucky regarding crime, especially at their house. Yeah, because they've never actually had anything. They've never had a break-in. They've never had any kind of thing happen at their home. And other than the one time my mom she wakes up obscenely early in the morning, so like, and she was looking out the window because it was quite dark, probably like 4:35 in the morning, and she just saw these eyes looking at her from in the darkness in our property. So she went, I remember because I was at home actually, I was living at home at that point. She went wild, she went crazy, and she like started screaming and stuff, and the guy obviously ran away. And then once
she's the don't go to that house, that lady's fucking crazy.
once the guy disappeared and the sun came up, we went outside and checked, and we found this like large kitchen knife just like lying there. So obviously he like got a shock, dropped the knife, and he left this like long kitchen knife. But the thing that I find is funny is that my mom still uses that kitchen knife in her kitchen. She still uses that same kitchen.
Oh, dude,
That's
that's
a
a.
PTSD.
So
Absolutely.
I thought, and
It's like
from what
it's
you
like the lady who killed the bear and made the dentures with the bear's teeth, and then ate the bear with his own teeth.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, you're
She's that guy.
who's more scared in these cases? The homeowners? Like, are they protected? Are they loaded to the nines with
Some places
with
are,
everything? Like, why would that guy drop his knife and run instead of like? Wouldn't a homeowner think the guy's going to shoot me? I better go back inside and get my guns? Or
I mean, some people do have guns. But South Africa is not the USA though. Like in the USA, everybody is armed to the teeth. The bad guys are armed to the teeth. The good guys are armed to the teeth. But in South Africa, there's actually inequality in that regard. Like much more difficult to get a gun legally
Oh, no,
in South
that
Africa.
was my question.
Much more difficult to get a gun, but very, very easy to get a gun illegally. Very easy. It's very simple. So the criminals.
But wouldn't your mom be scared shitless?
She was. That's why she went
Crazy.
So young.
And I mean, maybe he was just an isolated case. You know, maybe it was. There's a lot of maybes. Maybe it was his first time out trying to go and rob
Right.
a house. Maybe,
Yeah.
and maybe he just got a shock. And
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
it's just a crazy person. Who knows? But like in this, the thing is, he was a single guy who ran away, and we were lucky. But they often operate these guys in packs, in teams. They will like hijack your car. Inside, a good example of this as well.
Hold on, they're not like that one on the internet where you drive by, the guy stops on the motorcycle to help you. One guy steals his motorcycle, comes back the next way, steals his phone, comes back the next way, steals.
I mean, I definitely wouldn't put that kind of thing past them. They are predators. A big thing when I was living in South Africa, they like to do this thing called smash and grabs. Smash and grabs. They break your car window and steal something from you. Like if you've got a bag, like your wife or whatever is carrying a handbag, or if you've got a PC, a laptop, then they'll like smash your window of your car and then grab that and run away.
Oh, wow.
So like
Take my wife.
that's why it's not safe to stop at more than even hijacking, which also does happen. My uncle was actually murdered in a hijacking.
No way.
Yeah, in one of the safest, one of the best areas in Cape Town. He stopped his car at a light. These guys pulled up, jumped out. I mean, he was a bit of a questionable fellow, a bit of a bigot. So who knows what he said to these? He was kind of old as well, so he probably didn't give a shit. And he probably said something to them, and they just shot him dead in front of his wife in his chair, and then took his car. They just shot him dead in his car right there.
Oh, that is crazy.
Like that was part of the stuff I found in West Africa, was that as long as you listened to them and gave them, hey, here, this is what I got. And you got something else. And no, I left it there. It's at the hotel. It's at the embassy.
According to his wife, he didn't say anything bad to them at all. He just said, take my car, and they just shot him. According to her. So
that's when it sucks, when they don't care what you have or don't have. They're going to get you anyway. That's not fun.
And that's kind of what you're dealing with in South Africa. It's that random ultra violence, and that's very hard to live with because you just never know when you're next.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in South Africa, again, I was very lucky, super lucky for whatever reason, but I used to carry like a large flick knife with me all the time because guns, as I said,
Switchblade.
yeah, like a flick knife.
Yeah.
Kay used to carry like a butterfly knife with me all the time. And there were more than a few occasions where I thought I need to use that knife.
No way.
What if you go to like nightclubs or something? Is there people in there? Same thing.
You know what you will notice, and again, I never really picked up on this until I came to Korea. But like in Korea, I've never seen a proper fist fight at a nightclub.
Yeah.
In South Africa, that is the norm.
Yeah.
Like you will see a fist fight between somebody. So people go out there looking for fights. So there's that violence, I think, perpetrates into all parts of life.
Yeah.
And there it's, I've seen people horrendously beaten in South Africa. And I came to Korea and it's just absent. That just doesn't happen.
Because whoever, it doesn't matter who's the aggressor in the situation. Whoever is on the receiving end of the most punishment pays the other guy.
And in South Africa, there's a good chance some or other, they'll get away with it. They know they can.
So what kind of you say you lived in a house growing up? What kind of security system or measures did you have in place?
Bars and that's what I'm saying. My family, extremely lucky.
But I mean, is there a 10-foot fence around the compound, or
again, my family crazy lucky because nothing's ever happened and they don't have any of that. And my mother always said, if you build it, they will come. Like if you build a huge big fence, then people will think you're trying to keep something.
That's what I said earlier.
Out.
Don't advertise anything.
But the most people in South Africa do have exactly that. They have a huge fence with razor wire, or actually more usually electric fences on the outside. They have armed response.
It's more like
they
a
have
game.
Cameras on all the corners.
I want just the no brand home.
Everything. and my parents have just a very, very, and it's a strange house in South Africa, honestly, because it stands out for being so not protected, and yet they've never had anything happen.
Wow. Can you something last time we had lunch there,
something that you told me really stuck in my head. I had no idea, but growing up in Canada and just I think generally maybe everyone holds the same views that Nelson Mandela, I thought he was always, how do you say, a very soft-spoken, peaceful guy. But what you told me last time, before he came out of jail, people were really worried that there was going to be some blood in the streets. Is that the... Do I remember that?
Let me start off by saying that Nelson Mandela is a true saint.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
There is no other way to put it. Like, it's easy to be a saint when you've never been put through anything, but he is a true saint. Like, people of South Africa, the native people of South Africa, had every reason to, like, have bloodshed and, you know, to completely just kill every white person there. They had every reason to do that. And many people expected that to be exactly what happened at the end of apartheid.
Yeah.
And he preached nothing except for, like, reconciliation and peacefulness.
Oh, that's so...
And after being kept in prison for 27 years and subjected to all kinds of different tortures and who knows what, he came out and just preached. Like, it's unheard of.
Absolutely incredible story. I don't even know how to describe it. When I think about that, like, again, 27 years, we say the same points over and over, but 27 years beaten and tortured, and you come out and you're just like,
I mean, it's
cool.
To be honest, there's nothing. I don't think there's anything more you can say about Nelson Mandela that hasn't already been said. I think it's the reason why when you tell Korean children in South Africa that you're from, Korean children in Korea that you're from South Africa, the first thing they'll say is, "Oh, Nelson Mandela." That's the level of his fame and his greatness. A true saint. Yeah, I don't know what to say other than that.
Have you read that book?
Long Walk to Freedom.
Yeah,
I have.
It was amazing. Well, great book.
Next,
you got it. You
next
got it there.
Next on the list there.
Having known it's a long read, but it's good. I just wanted to go back to the one I asked you before about these guys going home.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of the South Africans here are young and kind of up and comers. But I think I can't stop thinking about the Syrian refugees that land in Canada. And I think as much as Syria will always be their home, I think most of them have no desire to go back unless it's completely, rebuilt, guaranteed of no wars for 10 years or something. Like they assume that life in Canada, they're welcomed, they feel like part of the community, they can try and fit in or acclimate. And as much as that is their home, it's too dangerous, too crazy, and not probably worth it to go try and go back. What do you think? Would that...
Syria is a different story to South Africa, mainly because, as you said, Syria is actually in war. It's a war-torn situation. So there's like, there was the before and the after. That's the difference. Whereas with South Africa, it's just is what it is. Okay. It's just as it is.
I don't think you say like, oh, there are airstrikes, but home is home.
Yeah, exactly, right? But you can say like, there's violence, but home is home, because, or there's crime, but home is home, because that's just what you're used to. That's the norm. It's the norm. So you're already going back to the norm. So when people go back to South Africa, they know what they're going back to. And I will say this as well. We've said a lot of negative things about South Africa, and place. Mostly around crime. No, it's not. It is maybe one of the most beautiful places. I mean, I've seen beautiful places, and I've rarely seen places as beautiful as South Africa. And I'm not just talking about Cape Town. The entire country is breathtaking. It's not just that, though, because South Africa has something unique about it. The people, the vibe, there is something incredible about South Africa. And that is enough to drag people back, for sure. Definitely. Me personally, I'm not sure if it is. Like, I'll keep going back to visit, even if it's not just for my family. I love South Africa. It's an awesome place. It's a shame what's kind of happened there and what continues to happen there, but it's still an amazing country with a ton of potential. So, I don't know.
There's a guy that used to live here from South Africa. I think his name is Wolf something. But I remember having a conversation with him one night, and he's like, "Man, you got to come to South Africa." He goes, You drive 2 hours this way, you're snowboarding. You drive an hour this way, you're at a nice beach. You go over here, you got the huge mountains. He said it's absolutely exactly how you described it.
It's amazing. And I will still recommend. I recommend to my friends, Korean friends. I recommend all the time that they visit South Africa. I do tell them, probably a good idea to like go with a South African. Because they'll know where to go, where not to go, where to kind of generally keep you safe. But I recommend people visit South Africa all the time because it is still an amazing country.
Yeah.
And if you know how to, I have had crime happen to me in South Africa, but I've been fairly lucky myself. I haven't had like a lot of very bad crime. Mostly I've avoided it. In Cape Town, I used to walk around on the streets, no problem. Johannesburg, especially in certain areas, I'll definitely not do that. So it just depends. Like if you know what you're doing, I think it's the way you carry yourself as well, perhaps. No, more like actually not like scared.
Of course,
if you look nervous, or if you look like you don't know what's going on, or if you're a foreigner carrying a big camera, taking snaps of everything, then you paint a target on your head. But if you walk around like
it's advertising, right? You don't.
If you're confident and you like to walk around in the, where you're going, and you avoid certain areas, you're probably pretty safe.
I love if I'm out traveling and there's the other guys that have just got no sense of travel and they're got all their flashy shit, and I'm like, okay, I feel so much better because I'm pretty big guy. If I'm traveling, I probably got a bit of hair on my face, and these guys with all their flashy shit are way bigger targets than I am, and I'm just always confident that there's going to be people that aren't as bright that are don't think to take their stuff off before going out. And in general, I think I've also been very lucky in my time traveling.
As a young guy growing up in Johannesburg, did you have any role models, and did those people lead you into teaching or into education as a career? As far as I know, you're like a registered proper teacher back in South Africa, and you taught.
Registered proper teacher.
Yeah. Not like us fakers over here.
No, very, very, very much real.
Yeah.
Both my parents are teachers.
Oh, cool.
And my dad was actually a headmaster, principal. I don't know what you call it. He was a head teacher.
I like headmaster.
Headmaster. Right, that's what he would have called himself as well, headmaster. And headmaster. Sorry. I slip into the Americanisms every now and again by saying like master. Master. But when I was growing up, I swore I would never be a teacher, actually. Because in South Africa, teachers have a very poor deal. You know what I mean? Like, teachers generally are kind of taken for granted, I think, but in South Africa, even more so. They're very underpaid as a profession. They don't really, it's not we didn't grow up. I wouldn't say we were underprivileged, but I definitely felt like I had less than most of the other kids that I grew up with. You know what I mean? Yeah. With both of my parents being teachers. Yeah. And I didn't like, they worked like dogs. They worked really hard for very little recognition, little pay, and I just thought this is a bullshit job.
They're teachers at heart.
This is a bullshit job.
What is a typical salary for a teacher?
I have no idea anymore because I've not been a teacher in South Africa for a while. I've heard that's improved.
20 grand, 30 grand, 15 grand?
What? Grand in a year? I mean, I hear I have some friends in South Africa and they're earning about 20,000 Rand a month. 20,000 Rand a month is about $2,000, maybe a little bit less actually a month. Which is not that bad, maybe. I don't know, actually, I'm not sure. Like doing all these
but it depends on
just a ballpark.
Depends on your your living expenses and whatnot too.
And again, I'm not really sure because I've not been a teacher there for quite a long time. So things maybe have improved. It also depends on the school that you're in, if you're a private school or public school.
In public school, growing up, we experienced pretty much listening to your teachers. There's always the bad kids here and there, but pretty much the teachers are respected.
Yeah.
I've had friends who worked in England.
I worked in England too.
He said, kids are brutal. I had a little anecdote. I had a buddy teaching chemistry in England. He went over for a semester or something, but he said kids were lighting shit on fire and throwing it at him and in the science class.
True chemists.
Yeah, true chemist, yeah. Chemist at heart. But he said it was wild, like swearing at him.
I'm an elementary school teacher,
yeah,
so I think I avoid most of that crazy stuff. Like super crazy stuff. But I've seen a few things. I did supply teaching
Yeah.
when I was in London, so I got to see a real spread, and it really depended more on the school and the area that you went to. I mean,
and I think that would be the same almost anywhere.
Probably, yeah. But I do think Western culture definitely breeds defiant children.
100%.
And I saw some real eye-opening. I had a kid in my class who threw a chair across the class because he was having a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So
elementary too.
Yeah, it was elementary school. He was a little guy, and yeah, that was the kind of. I mean, you do see some stuff. Again, you see some amazing schools in London. So again, it just depends on the school and the area. South African kids or Western kids. So,
what about role models growing up in South Africa? Is there any mainstream figures, or is it more personal? Do you have any?
When you asked me the question, the one that jumped into my mind was actually a teacher I had when I was in grade 4.
Cool.
Weirdly enough.
Yeah.
And she was a great teacher, and I think unconsciously I model my own teaching style on her.
Yeah.
Obviously my parents, my mom in particular. My mom's she's a low-key saint as well.
Yeah.
So I do model myself on her.
An everyday hero.
That's awesome. How do you feel, or what do you think in terms of teaching here in South Korea, where it's not public school, but these after-school academies and stuff, where kids, they're pretty much forced to go. I mean, it's not like they say, which one do you want to go to today? And they all jump up and say English. What is it like when you're working with kids who maybe don't necessarily want to be there?
I make them want to be there. When they talk about their academies, and they say like, oh teacher, I hate Maths Academy, I hate Piano Academy. I'll say, what about English? No teacher, we love English Academy. I'm like, that's what I want. Yeah. So, but at the same time, I also make sure that they learn stuff, because otherwise, what's the point?
But that's the thing. I think a lot of people don't take their job seriously here. Come for a year, hang out, see where it's going to go, and then maybe get more serious, or maybe just I'm going to stay 2 more years and just get as much cash as I can. And I think there's a lot of people who don't take it seriously. You coming from an education background, maybe it's a little bit different, right?
I agree with you, but I also have a different perspective on that. I think that a lot of people, especially young people, they come here with the best intentions. They want to be like teachers, educators. They want to help children. And then the system intervenes and says, whether it's at academy or at public school, it says like, no, you have to do this, and you cannot do this, and you cannot do this.
Right. Do it
and
our
it
way.
Kills all their kind of like their creativity and their desire. And then they just become like automatons, and they just go through the day. Yeah. So I think Korea is partly responsible for creating that environment.
Sure.
Because I think I've met a lot of teachers who've had that, like, they just seem so disillusioned. They've had the desire completely stripped.
But do you mean they actually want to be teachers? Like in my experience,
nobody
here comes with an education degree. I mean, very few, and for their random arts and science degrees.
I don't think they come wanting to be teachers, but I do think that many people come wanting to make a difference, to help and to do something positive, and then they have that kind of taken away from them, and then they become jaded and negative, and that's and I think that is more the problem. Obviously, many people, but although I will say this as well, I think a lot of people I've met actually come here just wanting to do that like 1 year or 2 years as any whatever training they've had, and then actually decide they want to be teachers. I've actually met quite a few people like that.
It's me. Yeah.
There's a lot of people who actually discover their joy and love for teaching in Korea. So
mine was about three or 4 years, and I was like, "Ooh, this is."
And I think part of it actually is when you go to your, especially academy, because I think at public schools you just don't have a choice. I was even speaking to a Korean teacher who teaches at a public school, and she was even like, we don't have a choice. We just have to teach exactly what they tell us. And they have very little like wiggle room. Yeah. But in an academy, you actually have more freedom to kind of affect change. Yeah. You can actually create change. You can change your class. You can change even the curriculum to a degree. And I think if you persist and then you can make positive changes, then you see the joy that can be teaching.
I always found if you had evidence, if you could show, not just say, this is shit, I don't like it. well, you're never going to get anywhere. But if you say, I think this isn't the best way, but I think this would be better. Do you think I can try this? As long as you had solutions instead of just complaints, that a lot of directors would be more open to, okay, try it and see.
I mean,
or let me propose it to the moms and let's check.
Korea is a results-driven country. As you say, like if you can show that what you're doing is effective, and if you also play the game, like the Korean game, where you make sure that everything looks good and everything like looks shiny and perfect, no one's going to ever say a thing. In fact, people will love you because
you just got to sneak it in for the first couple of weeks so you get some results, and then
I think more like the first couple of years. Actually,
it's like the dating game.
That's what I mean by persistence. You can't just expect to come and like make change immediately. You've got to like do it for a while, and then people are like, "Oh wait, maybe he's onto something," and then slowly, your way will become the norm.
But I mean, even
part of the norm.
I mean, even introducing games. They say, "Oh, no games," or the mom called and said you're playing games in class. Yeah, and ask kids how much they want to come to English Academy now. They love it. They want to come because they're doing it and they're learning. It's fun.
It's fun. You have to. I mean, I agree. Parents need evidence of work, so they must be working. But the games are where the kids learn.
Sure.
I don't care what anybody says. So it's about balancing things out. If you come and only play games, sure, I can understand why the parents are irate.
Yeah.
But if you balance it out and there's like evidence of work, well, who's going to know and can complain about that?
There is also this conservative flavor throughout the system, though. I also have experienced something similar in my research. Even if you show that these things are effective and these things are not worth it at all,
but that's
they
what
are
I mean
like, but we have been doing
That's what
this.
I mean by playing the game, though.
Yeah.
Like, so, for example, at my academy now, we do a lot of written work, which I think helps the children. They do, where they actually are building their English, and I'm teaching them how to actually construct English and make sentences properly, kind of from the ground up, and then we create a portfolio which we send to the parents. Now, that alone, parents can't really argue with that when they get a thick stack of work. That if you've been playing games every day as well, they're never going to complain about that because the evidence is right there in front of them in like physical form.
Do you have a quote that you go by for a philosophical? Mine, I like the no. I thought everyone has a quote. I think. Teaching isn't the filling of a bucket; it's the starting of a fire, or it's a lighting of a fire. I like that one. I like that.
I don't like that. I don't really have a quote as much as just a philosophy, I guess.
Do you want?
I'm not really a quote kind of guy.
All right. Well, yeah. Could you speak to your teaching philosophy?
Yeah. I mean, I wrote it.
Do you want to bring up your portfolio from?
I'm just gonna get my assignment out right now because they pretty much.
This is something that we've both extensively had to write on in our time at university.
Even when you say it, though, right? It sounds like it's a fake university.
Listen, the first time you told me, I was like, "What?" I sang it in my head as like some African, like University of the People. It's like some sort of like song in my head.
When I tell people that, they're like, "Are you sure that's a real university?" I'm like,
"Well, listen, hey, when you compare it to other universities, dude, it's harder. I think we do 10 times the work." Yeah.
I actually spoke to someone else they're one of those kind of like, say, more recognized kind of institutions. And they told me what they do on a bi-weekly basis. I was like, that's a joke. Like, I do like 10 times more work than you.
Yeah. And there's no one lecturing to us.
By the end of this, if you look at the amount of work, we've written books.
Absolutely.
We've written books. Yeah. There's no joke.
I'm posting it all on my...
it's crazy.
On my,
on my website. Grueling. It's grueling. Yeah. That's why I'm so depressed that I found out I've got 3 more.
Extended goals.
My philosophy of teaching is you have to... And love is a strong word, but you have to love your students. That is, I think, that's where you have to start. You have to love your students and want to achieve the best for them. Want to do what is for the best of them. And sometimes it's hard because, kids are kids and kids are people. So it's really hard to like love them, but you've got to have love and compassion and you've got to care for all your children truly. And if you start at that point, then pretty much everything else you do, I think, will be in the right direction. I'm also a big believer in like fun, lightheartedness, bringing out like what is, bringing out the kids' inner, strengths, maybe spark. Yeah, kind of what you said earlier. Yeah, so I guess your quote applies to me.
Yeah, nice. But I agree the attitude you bring into class. If you working early in my early days in Hagwons, you get a whole smattering of different classes and attitudes and levels and whatnot. And some of them are more difficult, the middle school kids, for example. And I find the attitude that you bring into the class really affects the outcome of the class.
I think a lot of teachers, it's easy to love the good kid.
Of course, yeah.
It's easy to love the good kid, but actually it's the difficult kid that needs it more. And it sounds so cheesy, always what I'm saying, but like that kid, the one, if you treat with like respect and dignity and love, they will be the ones that show the biggest turnaround. Sure. They will be the one that really like improves and makes an amazing improvement. So yeah.
Have you ever had a kid you couldn't?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that, funny enough, all the good kids, I can't even remember their names for the most part. But those kids that you just could not reach after trying everything and showing them respect and them just treating you disrespect. I remember their names, their surnames, probably their address, so I can go throw a Molotov cocktail at them. I will find you on Facebook, Sean Baron Blatt.
That's wonderful. We've learned lots of, again, with University of the People, we've... Sounds so fake, but we've studied theory anyways extensively with the IB system. Do you have any thoughts or criticisms on that? Is that something going back home, if you went back home or if you had a chance here, do you think that's something you'd be interested in teaching? Personally, the people I've talked to and interacted with who are currently teachers, or like who are studying with us, but who are teachers in the system, they said a lot of the results, the kids are good. Students learn a lot. They have ample experience and whatnot, but a lot of their work, their in-class work is good, but a lot of outside of the classroom work is getting ready for, or like preparing their school for evaluations or whatnot to keep up to IB standards. Any thoughts or criticisms?
My knowledge of is completely theoretical.
Yeah.
I have never taught in that system. I mean, I can obviously see that there are some benefits to it. Obviously, it is a very liberal kind of education that claims to be quite stringent.
Do you think it could work in a place like South Africa, in a standard public school? Or when we study about it, it seems like it's cut out for kids who aren't worrying about too much in their life other than studying.
For me, it seemed, the main thing that I thought about it was, it seemed very hazy. I couldn't put my finger exactly on what IB actually was. Like, as much as I even studied it, I couldn't find anything concrete telling me exactly what IB, it's like more just a philosophy. Instead of like, well, this is exactly what it is. So even now, when you ask me that question, I'm like,
isn't it all just experiential learning? Kind of self-driven. I think the idea is that they want to motivate the kid enough for them to learn themselves, right? And the teacher is not really the teacher in the traditional sense of I'm standing up and lecturing.
I mean, that's all like modern Western education is moving in that direction, which is like exactly the opposite. It's the foil to like Eastern education, which is exactly
I was going to say, like at home, when you have shop and home ec and all these other courses, I mean, those are all experiential courses that you can take, and you can kind of stream your high school if you want to go into academics or trades. And I mean, they're not IB schools as they're labeled IB, but I mean, they're kind of that. Maybe the IB ones seem more exclusive or something. But is it? But other than that, is it that much different than a student who can kind of choose their tracks? And you have to take the basic whatever courses, but I'm sure IB, you have courses you don't like too. They're not everything. You don't enjoy everything. You got to have some you don't like. So, and at home, if you want shop and home ec and auto mechanics and stuff, then you go and do that.
One of the big criticisms of it too is learning math through like active learning methods instead of just sitting down. The teacher saying, "This is how you do it. This is you plug this number into here," and kind of trying to discover for yourself is pretty.
From like a totally outside perspective, IB schools seem like just a place where rich people send their kids so that they don't get pissed.
Well, I was going to say, like, when you say it exclusive kind of in terms of, people who only want to study, I don't think so. Like, every guy at Hyundai's kids don't just want to study. There's a whole mix of them, but they can't send them to Korean public school. They can, but they're not going to with zero Korean. So they send them to Busan or to the Hyundai school here. But the Busan is the IB school, and it doesn't mean their kid's going to fit in. There's no other options. So they send them there, and there's kids from all different ends of the spectrum on there. So
I just want to know how IB like seems to have permeated everywhere. It's just I'd never heard about it until I did the University of the People, and suddenly this like
Suddenly I woke up with a tattoo.
Were, like using this like IB kind of expression, and I was like, where did this even come from? And how did they manage to just get their like tentacles into everything?
Yeah.
That was more my question. I'm just like,
they're doing it.
It's weird, like,
but I think that's it. Like it maybe it comes from, I don't know. I'm just saying what I think, that these kind of privileged, exclusive people living expat lives on expat packages where money is not an option or not a problem, and companies are paying for it. Somebody saw an opportunity to create this specialized place, and now people.
Everybody. I will say this: my one thought about IB is every time it comes up in my studies, or like one of my peers mentions IB, they always do it in a way where I think, you sound super pretentious. You sound like such a douche. Like they're always like, I'm in an IB school and blah 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 blah. I'm like, oh my god, like please shut up, because you just sound super douchey. And I still, again, like my biggest problem with IB is I can't really put my finger on what it is.
Yeah.
And I thought, is it just me? And I really did like a lot of research to try and like figure it out. And I'm still not sure what IB is.
It's honestly a lot of money. It's a lot of extra courses.
It seems like a
business. It seems more like a business.
That's what it sounds.
Right?
That is what it.
That's what education is now.
It has to be. Honestly, that's the answer to my question. How has tentacles managed to get everywhere? It's a business, because that's what we live in. We live in a business world. It's a business. So in the end of the day, that's what I actually concluded. You're a business.
One thing that school has given me is a chance to look at lots of aspects of Korean education. I think the elementary education here, second to none. I'm only comparing to back home, but it's pretty good here, man. The elementary curriculum in terms of, I mean, grade 1s and grade 2s, they finish at what, 12:30, 1:30?
Mm.
But then they have the option of, again, choosing their path of very low. There's after school programs which are very affordable, and they can choose what their interest is to continue their learning after the.
I think those things are incredible, and I don't remember them being around for forever. I can't even try and pinpoint when they increased the amount of those. Are you familiar with those?
I'm not sure what you're talking about. No.
So like these grade 1 and 2 kids, like our kids finish at 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then at home, I just think so many parents, both the parents work. What do you do with your kids? Like after school care is a huge thing at home. What do you do with your kids until 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock? So here, you can, and Corona's put a dent on this in a lot of ways, but in general, there's a million different classes or 50 classes you can take. My daughter right now is doing abacus, learning math on the abacus. Yeah. She just started 3D pen, and it's like a really good sampling of what you know. She's doing Korean. She did some Chinese last semester, I think. She's got art. She's got clay art, violin. So she can kind of, and they're like $25 for a semester, or for how long is it? 12 weeks? Maybe.
I don't know.
About $25 for 12 weeks.
Only first and second grade?
No.
There's early elementary school.
Yeah. So as you get older, you can get into coding and
you know, like,
but they have drones. They got all kinds of cool stuff.
I think in a way, I mean, obviously I don't have kids in elementary school, so I only get the information I get from my students at my academy. But I think Korea has a very weird educational setup in that in elementary school, the kids seem like to love it. They seem to like school. They seem to be full of joy, and like, you know, they're really getting a lot out of their educational experience. But it's like the learning curve, I think, in Korean education is insane. They go from like that to middle school to having all the joy like squeezed out of their lives.
Yeah.
And I think that's a jarring change for children. I think it's part of the reason like middle school and high school students have such trauma in this country, is because there's not a good flow from like elementary school to high school. I mean, they need to probably make it more consistent. You can actually just see it in the kids' eyes. Like I've seen kids in grade 6, they're one thing, and then they go to like grade 7, and they're just a different child.
It has changed though. I don't know. There's no.
That's not just hormones.
There's no.
I was gonna say puberty is
no. It's not just hormones.
No, I'm not saying it. I'm saying it really makes it even more difficult.
It does.
When they're going through those stages, and now you go from hanging out playing soccer every day at lunch to don't look outside of your book.
Right.
And everyday academies till 10 o'clock.
Exactly.
And
It's changing. I think yes, absolutely.
It needs to change.
It
desperately needs to change.
They used to have exams in grade, but they used to have exams from grade 1. Now the exams start in middle school.
I don't think the parents' mentality has changed.
No,
the system's changed a little bit, but they just keep putting them in more academies, more academic academies.
I think parents know and they don't want to do it, but they're scared of
same thing.
Scared
what
of
society, what public
parents do what they know, and what they know is the old system. So they're just going to keep.
Well, that can't be because they never used to have hagwons before. So,
but what they
one set of parents invent 50 years ago there wasn't hagwons. So one set of parents started a new system where let's get into the hagwons. Somebody changed the direction. Introducing these private academies.
I don't even have a problem with hagwons as such. I just have a problem with hagwons being very often useless. Like, they're just there for show. Like, I've been in I've at least witnessed many academies where I'm just like, this is not real. Like, if you're an English academy, teach the kids English. Don't just put it here to like look like you're give the impression of teaching English, because you can actually teach the kids English. It can be
But I think here too, parents expect their kids just to. I think there's a very negative view of people who are just not learning. Like, if you're not learning something or not engaged in something, I think that's viewed as like wasted time. Not that you need a balance in life, but parents believe their kids should be, it should be like input. The kind of front loading all of their learning in the first 12 years of their life.
And it's a cultural expectation too. Like, that's
Absolutely.
why everyone from the richest parents to the ones who are like the least well off will have their child enrolled in like 3 or 4 different academies.
But this is what we
doesn't matter.
What we talked about earlier, and how, I don't know, maybe doing that sours the kids' view of learning in general.
It does. It completely does. It does.
And I mean, and a good point of the IB shilling over here, but they
you really are.
Is
this sponsored? Because you really should say that up front. That's only
welcome.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I saw the tattoo.
Didn't see. Oh no, I was going to show my IB tattoo.
Yeah.
But just fostering the mindset that you should be learning through your whole life. School shouldn't be something that you hate. It should be discovering things that you like to do.
Learning should be a joyous experience, and if you can.
And it is, and it took me 34 years to figure it out, but it's nice, man.
Talking about the transitions, my daughter came out of an English kindergarten where she had loads of homework.
Right.
My thinking as a parent was that if they can do the heavy lifting, I can be more actively involved as a father and doing sports and activity and stuff. But if she doesn't get her literacy from the kindergarten, I'm going to have to do all that at home.
Right.
Because she's got to get it somehow, and she's multicultural, so it's not a guarantee that she's going to stay in Korea forever. So I would feel responsible for her literacy in English. So when they do that at school, I mean, she had a lot of homework, and she got to elementary school now, and she absolutely loves it. And if you ask her the best part, is there's no homework, and I was like, man, her kindergarten was so much harder than public school, but we put the hard work in for a year and a half or 2 years in kindy. She reads and writes really well now, and now we can just kind of keep growing that slowly.
How old is your daughter now?
7. Yeah, 7.
She's just
7. Her birthday was in February.
So she's a grade 1? Grade 1?
Isn't she? Maybe she's 6. 2014.
I was just about to say you're a good father.
No, she's 7.
Tony.
He's
7 too.
Yeah. He'll be 8 in December. Just that transition, that it went for her and I think a lot of more, like, now these hardcore kindergartens are getting more and more popular, and I think, man, you go from crazy kindergarten to super lax public school, like elementary, and then just straight back into the gong show of middle school.
But the easiness of elementary is offset by the hagwons that they're going to after. Not the nice after school 3D pen program, but the 100 word vocabulary.
Lots of these guys are going to Lego and Paduk and chess, and I'm like, that's what you do with your dad and your brother and your mom and your grandma.
The thing is, they don't do that with their dad.
No, they don't do anything.
Their dads are probably. That's actually when you said that, I was like, you can be more involved, like sports and whatever. Most of their parents, especially their fathers, I think, are absentee fathers.
There's a lot of good ones now.
Really?
I know a lot of good fathers now. Yeah. No, I don't mean the majority by any. I mean if it went from 1%, now it's at 7%, but it's increased a lot since.
I see dads out in the.
There's lots. There's lots of good guys out there.
Good. They should.
I was going to ask you, like for us, sports is such an important part of learning growing up, and I don't know any kids that didn't play sports. It didn't matter if you were good or bad, but everybody played sports. And like when I teach some adult classes and stuff, and they ask me about hockey, and I say, but it's not about just I played hockey and I want my daughters to play or whatever. I don't care if they play. I just want them to have fun. But it's unique, and in Korea, hockey is seen as this rich sport where it costs so much money. But
you're talking about ice hockey, I assume.
But we've changed that. Like our team is volunteer coaches, and it's like a third of the price of or a quarter of the price of a regular Korean team, which is just business and money. And when I tell them what I like about sports or hockey that my kids can learn, because I don't start a soccer academy. I'm not passionate about it. But to pay $300 a month for my kid to go learn how to dribble a soccer ball, come on. They can do that at the park for free.
I mean, unless he's really good. I mean, plays for Tottenham Hotspur.
That's the dream they sell you.
So, I mean, dedication, resiliency, hard work, teamwork, cooperation.
Yeah, obviously.
I'll work at all these things, and it's different. When you're on the ice and you fall down, you can't say, oh ma, because mommy's not coming on the ice. You got to get up and do it again, and get up and do it again and again. And I think it creates so many good lessons for kids playing sports. And in Korea, everything is so structured. Everything's so structured. And I think on the hockey rink, it's so free. They can be as good or try as hard as they want. But they learn so many good valuable life lessons that they can use later on in life.
I mean, I think as a teacher, speaking specifically as a teacher, some of the best teaching I think I've done is on the sports field, because I was a coach in most of my schools, and you have a way of reaching kids in a extracurricular, especially in a sporting way that you can't reach them in a classroom. Yeah, I loved coaching. I thought it was amazing. And South Africa is I would consider South Africa as a sporting country. Yeah. Like kids are, in fact, many schools I've been in, actually, they force children to take part in sports, or at very least extracurricular activities. You have to. You don't have a choice.
It's essential.
Most kids will choose to play cricket or rugby or soccer or whatever, like hockey, usually field hockey, not ice hockey. Yeah. But they have to take part in a sport. And I mean, I think the stuff that you learn in those kind of environments is unparalleled. You can't compare it to classroom.
Another example of taking them out of the classroom, I would say 80% of my kids at hockey will come up and say, hey, coach, how you doing? Or, coach, I don't understand. Or they don't even think that this is an English test. Or this is an English. Natural. You're a foreigner.
It's born of necessity.
You're a foreigner, and I don't know what to do. So I'm going to say, coach, I don't know. But in class, it might take them like 5 minutes to get that out. Or they just don't say anything and they just sit there.
Yeah, but because they know they're being judged on that.
How many kids speak English in a free setting, and after they come and say, thank you very much, coach, and I was like, kids don't say that in class or after.
To be honest, in Korea, that is one of my standards of achievement. If I've done well with a kid, if I see a kid out on the street, and the kid comes up to me and has a conversation, I'm like, I have done what I want to.
Without mom saying, hey, there he is. That's your chance. Go show me your $200 a month English.
Nate used to teach in this near my other place there, and when we used to walk down the street, Mandigo Sam, that's my teacher, and the kids would point him out in the street. Man, he was a celebrity.
I fully agree. When you're at the Home Plus and even my Ajima classes, when you see me at the other end of the aisle and you put your head down and speed up and bolt to the other.
Some kids will do that.
I mean Ajimas. But I'm like, guys, you talk to me.
Will do that
you talk to me here in class. You guys are all cool and relaxed, and it's not public school anymore. So this is what I want your kids to be like.
Yeah.
You guys are chilled. You're signing up. It's voluntary. You signed up for this class, and I have usually 15 to 20 women. You come here, and you relax and you enjoy.
He's pointing the finger at you.
And then
Right? There's 15 to 20 of them.
and then you come
Here
to
I
the
am,
supermarket.
Jumbo, too.
You come to the supermarket and all of a sudden you can't speak English.
Yeah. No, I agree. Actually, one of my most rewarding experiences, I think, in Korea, I think it might have been actually at a We Hope thing.
Yeah.
It was at Tewa Park, and we were selling
Yeah,
books, and I was just like minding the store, and I was just chilling. I think I might have been having a beer, actually, to be honest, just hanging out, having a beer, and two of my middle school students at my previous academy just wandered up to me. Hey, teacher. I'm like, hey, guys. And we stood and we chatted for like 20 minutes. They
That's
told
awesome.
me, he's like, yeah, he's got a girlfriend now. He's like, you know, he doesn't know us anymore. He keeps disappearing. We like chatted, and I really think that was honestly my like most rewarding experience I've had in Korea. I was like, yeah, this is great.
I always tell my uni students that if you see me at the park or at the festivals or wherever if you see me and come say hello, I'll buy you an ice cream, I'll buy you a beer, whatever's around, I'll get you something. I just don't want it's not a test. It's not a test. I'm not judging you. Just come and say hello, and
I'm only judging you if you don't come and say hello to me.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I like. I don't like when they're there. They just bolt the other way. Like, hey, we saw each other, and I'm going to see you on Tuesday.
I do call kids out on that often. Like, you saw me. You don't come say hello. Okay. Is that how it is?
I remember that in your next speaking test, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I think I think that's a good time to transition into community involvement.
Yeah.
I arrived here. I hit the ground running, knowing Jeff, being introduced to established people here in the city. When I first came, coming here as a married man, how do you connect to communities in Korea? How do you go out and actively find friends? Is it just kind of hanging out at the bar, meeting new people?
Well, I mean, you say as a married man, like I think with my
Well, I mean, why I say that, because I came as a single. I think if I had come with a wife, it might be different. I couldn't.
No,
maybe
what I was
have
actually
all-
going to say is
okay.
that one of the reasons, especially I've been somewhat involved with We Hope,
Yeah.
is because of Kay.
Okay.
Is because of Kay, because she is involved. When she first came, she had little to do, and she decided she was going to just try and involve herself in the community.
Awesome.
And she got involved with We Hope, and that's why it's kind of I got dragged along.
along, yeah.
Kind of willingly,
Yeah.
but on my own steam, I maybe would never have done that. I don't think.
Yeah.
Probably.
She's a catalyst for you.
She's definitely the catalyst, and she's very much a doer.
Follow her along.
Sitter at home and play a game or.
Yeah. Hey, listen though,
that's
that's
more
good.
my style. To be honest, but she got me kind of more involved in that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Which is also I got involved in kind of LGBT kind of community and those areas too. As far as meeting people goes, I mean, I think so, yeah. Like you meet a lot of people out in town.
Yeah.
Obviously, most people you meet like that, and then you meet through connections.
Yeah.
That naturally, I guess. I think Ulsan obviously has got a smaller foreign community than some other cities.
Yeah. We met probably through We Hope, right? I think I met you, Kay, and Tony.
I'm pretty sure Kay connected with you.
And then I met
And
you.
then you met me through.
I met someone for a coffee one time, but anyways, then when we used to run the foreign Ulsan foreign market there.
Oh yes, well,
Kay.
Kay was like the
Absolutely, the go-to.
yeah.
Her-
She took over from the girl who was previously running the show.
No, but you guys have did a great job doing that, man. You were Mr. Hummus there for a while.
Yeah, and the pandemic surely put an end to that.
Yeah,
That's actually sad because it was pretty cool.
What's
Good.
I really hope that that's something that gets up and running again. Again, talking about meeting people and connecting with your community, there's nothing better because that brings in people, engineers from Donggu, that brings in all teachers who are missing the.
And now that general trend in Korea has really become much more common. The market, the handmade stuff. I mean, when that was like 5-6 years ago, God, it was like people were all dodgy and sketchy, and now it's everywhere. Like it's wild. And you get before the pandemic. I mean, there was markets and community markets and neighborhood markets everywhere, street markets. It was really starting to pick up and become something.
The pandemic has definitely put a kibosh on a lot of things, and I just wonder. I'm really curious actually to see in the future how we'll, as a world, will emerge from this.
There was just an interesting article. I just read the first couple lines, but it was saying how
Tell us all about it.
no, but how the Great Depression changed the world in this way. People became more optimistic. The what's the flu? The Spanish flu changed the world in this way. People became more outgoing or more adventurous, and it just went through a few major world events and how the world mentality in general changed coming out of them. As savers or investors and more wild and adventurous.
I think we live in such a weird time in that we are, like, you can see it just when you walk around now because of the pandemic and because of literal restrictions you have on you. We live in maybe one of the most divided times in history. Like, people are isolated. People are, you don't see people's faces anymore even. We are stuck in ourselves very much. And yet, we have the internet, which connects us all. It's a very strange thing. Very strange. So we like disconnected and connected.
So funny you say that. I went to an art exhibit yesterday. My wife said, let's go check it out. I thought it was going to be paintings and whatever. But we walked in and it was like this. At first glance, you're like, what is this bullshit I'm looking at?
Isn't that usually and often?
Oh, you know what? Listen, I
do. I appreciate art, but even so, when I walk in, I'm just kind of like.
There was boxes with tubes coming out of them and like just a bunch of random shit. And I was like, what am I doing here? And then I looked, I'm like, oh, Jesus, you okay?
Is the computer all right?
Fuck, is your knee okay?
That was the chair.
Oh, okay. But hold on, then there's a piece of English literature there. Picked it up and started reading. I was like, there's meaning to this. And it actually, the whole idea behind it was two people from Singapore and two people from Korea connected using only online translations, and they explored each other's cities. They called it like cyborg, and they used each other to explore each other's cities in a time of pandemic. And it was, after understanding what the whole thing was about, it was actually really, really cool. But
interesting.
Yeah, definitely check it out. Anyways, before, and you mentioned that you had experienced the Pride parades in Korea. Can you speak a little bit to that and what and your experiences there?
Okay, well, there's actually only ever been one Pride in Ulsan that was kind of out on the street Pride, as you think of Pride usually in cities.
Was there a parade here?
There was a walk, yeah.
Really?
There was in the street, and so we gathered outside maybe it was a Lotte department store in Samsun. And
sorry to cut. Who's organizing this?
It was the Korean LGBT community. Okay. Cool. They organized it. And people invited us. They were like, you should come to this event. So we went with kind of like having been to Cape Town Pride. With that in mind, which is crazy. I mean, Cape Town Pride is probably like one of the biggest pride in the world. Yeah. Actually, it's. I mean, it spills onto the streets. It's everywhere. Yeah. It's crazy, and it's just accepted, very much accepted in Cape Town.
Well, Toronto has a pretty big one too.
Sure,
I think all over Canada.
But so we went there probably with that preconception, knowing it wouldn't be quite the same, but it was very different. Like maybe there were 100 people who were actually at the LGBT rally, and
10,000 against.
What's the makeup of Koreans and foreigners?
There were more Koreans actually. There was a foreign representation, but but there were a lot of Koreans actually there. But as Brian already said, like anti-LGBT community came out in thousands, thousands and thousands and thousands.
In Ulsan?
Yeah, lining the streets. It was insane. So there were maybe like 100 LGBT people and just thousands of like anti-supporters.
I don't get that.
And
you don't have to.
And not. But the thing is, not quiet anti-supporters either. Like rage-filled, angry, verging on violence. They had to bring the police. The police were notified obviously before. The Ulsan police were amazing. They were amazing. They like made a human chain that separated the anti-protesters from the LGBT like community or crowd or whatever you want to call it. It was kind of scary, I won't lie to you, because they were very loud, very angry, very clear about their hatred.
But there's no guns, no knives.
There was no knives. I do remember when we did like a march around the block, not a long march. We just did a walk.
Someone threw a mandu at you?
No, nobody threw anything. But people were like lying in the road in front of the bus because there was a truck. They were lying in the road just trying to stop the procession in front of the bus. They had to be dragged away by the police because it was an organized legal march
because they hate LGBTQ that much.
They hate other people and what they choose to do with their private lives.
There are very few things I'd lay down in the street and try and stop a truck driving by for. But
but can't you just see like one church saying, "Come on, you're not a real believer if you don't go out and protest against this." And
absolutely.
I mean, there's enough. The guys lighting themselves on fire at the end. Come on, this stuff has happened. And if you watched any of the coverage of the LGBT march in Seoul, that was also bananas.
I mean, that one in Incheon, I think it was disgusting. Where they were like the anti-supporters came out and crowded around people, had them trapped there without like food and water for hours on end. You didn't hear about that?
No, that's enough.
The police just turned a blind eye. The police were taken to massive task for that. I think the police commissioner lost his job over that in Incheon.
But there was also in Seoul in front of City Hall there, downtown. I mean, there was also a lot of craziness surrounding the LGBT Pride Week and the Pride Parade and everything. But I think you said more Koreans than foreigners. I would probably expect that, one, because we're in Korea, and two, what foreigner is going to go out and say, hey, yes.
It's actually illegal as well. We
right.
Afterwards.
You
shouldn't really be protesting.
Right.
We could have probably been deported for that, actually. So if
I gotcha.
You're not really supposed to take part in marches and stuff. So
I mean, that would be all over the global news if
you're not
deported for that.
Politically involved at all.
Yeah.
So Pride after that moved. We actually moved it inside and did it privately. We did it at SEMA Bar. It was wild. I mean, there are thousands of people, or hundreds at least, turned out.
Yeah. I think we brought in didn't we?
Kate got us to make a donation to bring in
Queen
or something.
Yeah. We brought in who do we ship?
Diva or Queen or
the party queen or something. I saw the picture. They're pretty.
Dancing Queen.
Yeah.
But
SEMA was good.
Just going back to that march, the one thing that actually stands out to me the most is when we were walking. We were just like walking and like singing and dancing to music and just having a good time. And this one woman, like, she pushed kind of through the police, like not past them, but like, and she did that, like, she looked at me and did the like neck slitting.
That's insane.
Gesture to me, and because I was all peace and love, so I think I blew a kiss to her. But that for me, that very much described that event for me. But kind of scary. I went.
How could you be so passionate about something that someone else likes? How could you hate something? I'm trying to make parallels in my head, but
come on, there's places at home, the churches at home and stuff, the anti-abortion stuff. It's everywhere. The radicals.
I gotta get out more.
You can have your own anti-rally, but don't prevent the people rallying.
That's exactly what we're trying to do. But I don't know.
Come on, man. When Koreans get fired up about something, there's no stop it. I mean, look at the getting Park Geun-hye out. I mean, hey, when they decide they're going to do it and they put a million people in the square every freaking weekend for how many months? I mean, if they put their mind to it, that's it. You're not changing them.
I think the flavor here is more like in Western cultures, it's more taken as attack on your freedom, right? But in Korea, it's perceived as attack on, like, you're
culture.
Trying to change our culture. Yeah.
Although
there's a lot of.
I really think that in Korea, it's like it is in many countries. The haters are just the loudest people. It's not that they're necessarily the majority. They're just super, super loud. Yeah. And I definitely think within the next generation or two, things in Korea will change a lot.
Of course. And
definitely.
Look at the last. Yeah, absolutely.
Without a shadow of a doubt, in 20 years, you'll see a very different Korea to what you see
and
now.
you gotta think too, your 100 people strong march, that wasn't done in vain. That's
of those
that's a good
things
that's a good step, man.
They're only one or two more K-pop stars away from blowing the top off.
Honestly, I think in 20 years you're going to find that like K-pop was actually seen as a force of cultural change. Like a good example, I'm not army. Let me just say that to start. But I actually respect BTS.
BTS poster on
I
the roof.
respect BTS in that they speak out about these issues. They talk about this kind of stuff, and they talk to the right generation. They're not talking to the older folks. They're talking to the young people, and I think they're changing minds, changing attitudes.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Fluffy, she shared with me the other day.
Nice girl. Yeah, she came down to she volunteered with us too.
Fluffy's amazing.
Yeah, Fluffy's a nice girl.
Fluffy's amazing. She shared another K-pop group. I think they're called Mamamoo.
Yeah,
a girl group.
Yeah,
and they brought a group of dancers who are gender fluid onto a national show. And whether they did this like kind of with the consent of the show or just kind of without their permission, but the thing is they gave them exposure, and that exposure is what changes perceptions. So I think it starts off K-pop, and it's starting as like a little thing, a little flame, but it grows and grows until it's just like undeniable.
It's kind of inevitable now because K-pop has so much commercial dependence on the Western culture or on the West, and to serve the West, to serve that population who is LGBTQ friendly, they have to cater to those. So there are a lot of profits.
Or maybe it's not. I mean, okay, yeah. I agree. There's probably business related.
So probably within 5 years they will.
Maybe
even
also,
if the society
maybe
doesn't
it's also
accept
personal because I mean, when for example BTS have spoken about those kind of things, there's a level of passion that's more than just we're doing this for business causes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think when they're talking about anxiety, depression, suicide, I mean, I think that permeates all of Korean youth. I mean, everybody knows somebody who, during the Sunung or after the Sunung is depressed or anxiety or what they all are.
It's important to. I mean, that's what Pride is about, and it's about exposure and changing people's perceptions.
And also, I think we would joke about it before, but if there's any industry where LGBT would be common in Korea, it would be the K-pop industry.
I mean, I think to be honest, that's one thing Koreans like to think that there are no gay people. I've actually heard Koreans say that to me, and it's not that there are no gay people or whatever, bisexual people in Korea. It's just that they do not feel safe to be out and safe to be exposed. But Korea has the same amount of like LGBT folks as every other country.
Right.
They do. And
so that's what when you show them, look, the stats are whatever percent of every population has a percentage of the population is LGBT. And but no, in Canada, there never used to be either until it became acceptable and not people weren't scared of being, chastised and stuff for being LGBT. Now you see it. Yeah. And still you don't see all of it, I'm sure. But it's much more acceptable now.
I mean, I don't want to name people that I know, but I know people in Korea, gay men, and many of their I wouldn't say partners, like sexual partners, are married Korean men with families.
No.
Totally.
But hold on, this is a problem in America also.
Married men who they married, but obviously they married because of cultural expectation. Right. They have the children, they've got the whole setup, but they're actually completely gay or bisexual or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, I can understand. That was like Freddie Mercury too. I mean, just to make a reference to pop culture, he was married and then came out. Yeah.
So, do you guys follow that story in America 5-6 years ago, maybe?
Which ones?
In one of these areas, HIV was skyrocketing, and they were like, "How is this possible? It's not related to this. They could eliminate certain things," and they found out that it's this exact situation of married men are actually gay and they got married because the stigma in their community is so bad they had to get married and have kids and have their gay lovers on the side. And this was the huge cause of HIV. And they couldn't figure it out because they just didn't expect all these guys with families to also have gay lovers on the side. But it was the same.
It's across the world. I don't think it's unique to Korea by any means, but anyway.
Wild. I'll ask the question. Give my 2 cents as well.
Okay.
Being in an open relationship, I don't know. Just it would drive me crazy to think my wife's on a date with someone else. And I think I've thought about this, and I've heard people speak about being in open relationships. How do you say? Is that?
I think the biggest thing for most people would just be jealousy, straight up jealousy.
But if you really, here's my thing. If you really love the person, and you want them to be happy, and they found happiness with someone else, why should you keep them back? And if it comes down to sex, do we value sex too much? You know what I mean? Like growing up, we think like, oh, sex is like this big taboo thing, and you know, and I don't know. That's a lot of fucking things and scrambled up.
Firstly, I don't particularly love the expression open relationships because I think it's more just about different relationships.
Okay.
Non-conventional.
And also I think the stigma attached to like open relationships is, as you say, sexual.
You just
People
swing
always
it.
clubs.
Yeah, exactly. That's what people always think, that you like are just, you know, like kind of perverted and dirty, and there's that. And I don't actually think that is what it is at all. Not for me, at least. I'm sure it is like that for some people, sure, but not for me personally. This is a lot to unpack, honestly. And we've already talked for a long time.
Yeah.
I could honestly, I've thought about like having a podcast or something on this actual topic.
Let's do it.
I think there is so much to say about this.
Let's cut it here.
I think
Let's cut it here. We'll do it another time.
okay.
No.
It's a deal.
Beautiful.
Like I'm totally down with that. But yeah, just to just touch on the subject, I think one of the things that we just accept about life is that relationships have to be a certain way. They have to be a certain way. They have to be like one person, and then you meet the person and you fall in love, and then you life forever, happy, you die. And I think that is completely unrealistic to put on everyone.
Yeah.
Like, sure, I'm sure some people have that situation, but we just happily accept that situation as the norm. And I don't think that is correct. Like, why do you think we have things like people cheating? Why do you think we have people, you know, we are human. We make connections. It's not just about sex, but it's about like connecting with other people. And sometimes we connect at different levels.
Yep.
Whether you're married or not, whether you're in a relationship or not, you may connect with somebody else. And often the one or other of the responses is either cheat, you know what I mean, or go behind your partner's back, or on the other hand, to deny yourself or deny what feels natural to you and just stick with, you know, what you've been with the norm.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a need to do either. I think, why should you be restricted? I know myself. I hate the idea of cheating, but I also know myself. I do tend to like make connections with other people. So, I mean, the way I prefer to think about, and it does sound very douchey when I say it, but it's consensual non-monogamy or polyamory.
Okay.
And that is not necessarily like a sexual thing, but just the acceptance that life is long, and that in that life you can meet other people who like you connect with. It's really difficult, very difficult, because most people don't understand. And as you say, like the knee-jerk response is just kind of like jealousy.
But isn't this? Don't you think this is one of those things that's going to evolve and change over time? Just like, you know, the office 9-to-5 office job, now remote working is going to be really.
Okay, no, let's stop. We're gonna get too much into it. We'll save it for next time. All right, that's it, guys. Thanks for listening. That was great. Please don't forget to check out our sponsor, Dr. English. It's your one-stop shop for all of your English conversational needs. Enjoy learning from the comfort of your own home. Call 010-4591-1496 for a free sample class. Take your English to the next level by visiting their website now at www.dr-english.com.